Hello, everybody, and welcome to the sneak peek, changing the way backup is done with Zerto 7. I'm Rob Strechay. I'm going to be one of the presenters. I'm the Senior Vice President of Products. Joining me is Gijsbert. He's our Technology Evangelist. He's going to take you through a little bit of the product and a demo over the course of the next hour here. And we hope to give you a better understanding of just where Zerto is going and what we really did produce, like we said we would, about back in May. So let's jump on in and start moving through. So what we're going to do here is we're going to cover, why doesn't backup work, the future of disaster recovery and backup, Zerto 7, some additional Zerto 7 capabilities, the architecture, where Gijsbert is going to actually jump in on that. Then he's going to give you a sneak peek demo. We'll summarize that and we'll take questions. As we put in the chat, we'll also be taking questions at the end. If you can put those questions, there's a little questions bar off to your right side there. If you can put your questions in there, we'll go through and answer as many as we possibly can, and we'll repeat some and come back to them at the end. So really looking forward to showing everybody this and jumping right in. So as you may have heard us talking about over the past year or so, is that really what we started to look at when we took an understanding of what Zerto was providing and what some of the other examples of data protection were out on the market, we really came to the concept that legacy backup doesn't work anymore. Applications are really too complex. There's the addition of cloud, multiple hypervisors. You have ransomware, which has really changed the game from a security and what does it mean to recover. Snapshots not really being usable when you're going back 4 hours and you've lost so much data. File deletions, again, how do you get back to really small recovery point objectives? And then really from a natural disaster perspective, that's always been there. And application mobility and data mobility has really become key, especially when you look at hybrid cloud and the consolidations, many companies really growing through acquisition, not to mention power outages. So again, why doesn't it work? Because backup and legacy backup wasn't built to cover for this. Legacy backup was built really to focus on a little portion of this around compliance and making sure that, hey, when I had 24 or 48 hour SLAs from a recovery time objective, I could get back. And right now, that just doesn't work in an always on environment. In fact, what we're seeing, is top areas of concerns that came out of a Gartner data center conference a couple of years back here is that really it's still too complex. Backup really has not evolved and become simple, and recovery speeds are still too slow. 4 hours, 8 hours, once a day really doesn't cut it anymore. And the cost of that complexity operationally, CapEx and OpEx wise, is still way too high. Even though IT people, get paid by the day, by the day to come in and deal with this type of stuff, you really look at it and the costs and concerns outweigh what the value is that's being provided. So the future of disaster recovery and backup is converged and it's continuous. We believe that you have to really bring these two together. As you may have seen, many different industries in the IT infrastructure business have really been consolidating. You had the hyper-converged infrastructure consolidating storage, software-defined storage, software-defined networking, and software-defined hypervisors, really bringing the compute and storage and networking into one box. We see that same thing happening. We're not the only ones who see it happening. The analysts who are out there in the market see it happening, and we see it increasing in speed. What we see as the future for disaster recovery and backup is really continuous data protection. And we believe that with continuous data protection and continuous data replication, you really need to be journal-based. This allows you to have that short-term and that long-term retention out of one system. We believe that we're extremely well positioned for this convergence and to be a strong piece of our customers' solution as they move forward, helping them to simplify those costs, both on the OpEx and CapEx side. So you may have heard, we did have other announcements this year. Back in September, we GA'd, made generally available our 6.5, which was really the foundation for what is going to be Zerto 7. We put in there some integrated scale out and backup services. We put in incremental writes. We also added support for Linux file systems under our file level recovery that comes out of the journal. This helped us really gain a lot of insight and input from our customers on where were we going with this convergence? How closely were we meeting their needs as we integrated backup into disaster recovery for total data protection? And we've learned a lot over the past, almost 6 months now. With 6.5, you really see that we're bringing out that foundation, and we've been really gaining that feedback. And with Zerto 7, we've been talking about Zerto 7, and what we really mean by Zerto 7 is really 7.0 and 7.5, which really pays out the journey that we're on, bringing the converged disaster recovery and backup into one platform built for continuous availability. It's really paying that out. We don't believe there's any big bangs. We believe that vendors who promise the world and don't deliver really come up short on these types of things, which is why we have a strict methodology for bringing things out every 6 months or so that you're getting incremental value from our product. As we move into Zerto 7 and start to understand what are the pieces that we'll be delivering over the course of this year, really you start to look into that converged DR and backup, which is really, kind of the cornerstone for what Zerto 7, and as you can see here, 7.0 is going to be as we bring that out in early Q1 or Q2. When you start to look at cloud enhancements, because we haven't forgotten about the customers who use us for that other leg of the stool, for that hybrid and converged cloud experience, be it with one of our cloud service providers or be it with one of the hyperscalers such as Azure or Amazon. We didn't forget about our existing customers who are using us just on the VMware platform as well, where we're Hyper-V platform by bringing out platform updates that help them be more operationally efficient. And then we have a new and enhanced user experience where we'll kind of give you a little bit of a preview of that later on as well. And then we'll also get into what are the advanced analytics that we're bringing out. As you may have heard, about 2 years ago, we released a product that was based on a SaaS platform to help give our customers better insight into how well protected they are, how much data protection they have. We're expanding that over the course of this year across the Converged platform as well. So let's kind of jump into that section on Converged DR and backup and kind of go through what are really the high points of it, with talking about Elastic Journal, Intelligent Index and Search, our net new data protection workflows that help you really consolidate those operations and get to restoration faster, and the addition of new target repositories as well. So we wanted to do this and introduce a new concept. Again, this is really the instantiation of where we go with what we call the Elastic Journal. As many people know, we have a journaling technology. You could kind of think of it as what was in an old school OS where you had a journal file system, but done on a massive scale, and being able to do block level journaling and a lot of protection that's been done at the short term. So 0 to 1 day to 30 days of data protection. What you can look at is, instead of just saying, hey, let's go at a new concept, what we've done is brought together long-term retention with that short-term retention that was the journal, adding new checkpoints into the journal that allow you to have points in time, back 7 seconds, 7 days, 7 months, 7 years, 70 years back in time. That combination allows you to understand how well is a virtual machine, an application, a set of applications protected. How well protected is my site? That Elastic Journal completely combines those technologies together. What's neat about this is, again, it lets you simply rewind to any point in time with no data loss or downtime. What's nice is those long-term retained copies are actually created out of that short-term retention pool, out of that short-term journal. Why is that unique? Because it's done on the other side agentlessly and allows you to then be able to get at a file, a VM, an app, or a site very uniquely. In fact, we're one of the only ones who will be providing this in an application consistent manner across multiple VMs. That really sums up how you get that app protection. I can remember back when I used to have to do recoveries back in the Stone Ages off of tapes, and you'd have to bring back 70 or so tapes to bring back one application. In here, with the click of a button, you can bring back what we call a virtual protection group. And that would be all of the systems associated with that application. Imagine that now. You're going to go and maybe you say you had to do it for compliance and restore a application from a year ago. You're going to go back and select that database, and maybe you rebuild all the rest of the infrastructure because it's just easier than going to your backups. Now you could have the app servers, web servers, and the database all restored at once. This way, in a consistent manner, like they were from a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 70 years ago, assuming that they still run, obviously. But let's talk about why this is really a unique overlap. And it's really the fact that it is non-disruptive. Within seconds, you can take and make another copy of that long-term retained point in time. It's the flexibility to choose from either the short-term journal, which you're going to have on near-term go-fast storage, or if you want to go to a long-term retention, that might be on a purpose-built backup appliance of your choice. And you're always protected. So be it from a meteor blowing up your data center and you having to go up to the cloud or going to your secondary data center, you'll always have that media break. What is unique about this is this really helps you get to that 3-2-1 type of protection, because the short term and the long term are created off-site. So you've already got the 1. You've already started to get to 2, because you can use the long-term protection can go out to another copy. That gives you the 3. So you get the 3-2-1 out of this system without having to go and make and do all kinds of manipulations and copies. You can send the long-term retained off to a worm device, a write once, read many type of device. You could send it off to a purpose-built backup appliance or to another type of an array that can keep it for that time, and then write it off to tape if you wish. And the Elastic Journal really is easy in being enabling you to set up those retention policies for a long term and the short term. This way, they're combined into the same types of workflows so that you understand when you create that virtual protection group, you're creating protection not just for the short term, but for the long term at the same time. This helps you be more operationally efficient and will help you really recover those costs and be able to simplify the operations around backup. So full application stack consistency. Again, this is piece of it where you'll have maybe an ERP application that's composed of a database, maybe it's SAP HANA, virtual, vHANA, and you have some app servers that are connected and some web servers, and you want to keep them as one component. Maybe it's one module of SAP that you want to keep together. You'll be able to take that from the short term to the long term and recover it as a group. So again, going back to the compliance or the archival types of things, you'll be able to pick where that lives long term to ride the costs down that you're effectively doing by using other ways of storing the data. So this way you'll be able to balance your short-term and your long-term retention to really preserve the costs for protecting that application. And you can have that differ by application. So again, it gives you ultimate control on how you protect these virtual protection groups and those applications and those VMs to give you a total ability to customize your SLAs. So some of the benefits, again, of the Elastic Journal, this concept that we think is really groundbreaking, is first and foremost what I just hammered home: application consistency, multi-VM consistency down to seconds, daily incrementals with weekly, months, or fulls. You'll be able to select, again, this goes back to storage and where you're keeping it and how often you want to be able to recover from. Don't worry if you pick a day or time, we actually do. So say you do monthly fulls and daily incrementals, we'll be able to bring it back automatically. There's no going and selecting all of the different pieces. We automatically integrate the pieces back together. You can leverage production grade or cost-effective second storage. So again, if you're using one of our partners or going like Hewlett Packard's Enterprises Store Once or Exagrid's secondary storage arrays, or even DataBox Edge from Microsoft, you'll be able to use that and ride down the cost of your secondary storage and be able to be cost effective. It'll also give you obviously support for local and remote targets on premise or on cloud. I kind of just mentioned the DataBox Edge or DataBox Gateway that would give you the ability to bring that up to our partners in Microsoft and Azure, and delivers RPO of seconds, RTO of minutes by leveraging the journal for that short-term recovery. Obviously, as you go back in time, it depends heavily on where you put the data, but again, we'll be able to give you those RPOs of seconds and the data consistency. Protection against the logical failures, not just disasters. Again, this is one of those really keys. By blending the short term and the long term, you get protection against things like ransomware. You get protection against data corruption or about file deletion. All of those can be done out of the short-term journal. What we found is that a lot of our customers, and the feedback we've been getting over the course of 6.5, is that, hey, we're going to keep 2 weeks of journal. That helps us cover all of the short-term pieces that we need to recover those logical failures. And then for major site disasters, we're covered both on the short term as well as the long term by being off-site. This also gives us a break in between so that we're not just covered from those logical failures, but hey, if we need a break in between sites, we have that as well. So popping into the secondary part of this that was going to be delivered in 7.0 is really the intelligent search and index. We're going to help you understand at a site level what is being restored. You're going to be able to find it and restore it very quickly. Search from different points in time. This is an unstructured and scalable search, so that you'll be able to see that VM and find what part of the virtual protection group it lived in on what ZVM or Zerto Virtual Manager within that site. So again, it will basically give you the ability to see all of those different checkpoints to restore from and help you quickly get back to where you want it to be. We also are introducing data protection workflows that help you really get into a user recovery. I've kind of hit on this already. Hey, I want to find a file. I can go in there. I pick the VM that file was resident on. I search through it for the file. I see the result across those different repositories that virtual machine may be stored on. I then select the recovery checkpoint that I want to do. The recovery orchestration takes over, and then I can go and pull that file right off of that virtual machine. And target repositories. What we've done is really looked at what our customers are using. We've started to really, again, get into the most common ways of using this. Our whole goal is we're a software provider. We want to provide you the most choice we possibly can in where your target repository is going to be. So we started back out with NFS and SMB because you can see, things like HPE's Store Once, Exagrid, EMC's Data Domain all leverage these protocols. And then we'll be adding protocols as we go through the year as well. And this way you'll have a different way of going about storing your data for the long term. And you can run your operations and ride your cost curves down. We're never going to force you into a appliance-based model from Zerto. Again, we're going to enable you to have those options of where that lives. With 7.0, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about why a lot of our customers are actually using us. This has been the largest growth engine for Zerto in the past year. Has really been public cloud. Over the course of the last year and with Zerto 7.0, we're making massive enhancements to how we deal with public clouds such as Azure. We'll be actually reducing the recovery point objectives to be even tighter and the recovery time objectives to be able to get in and out of Azure. We'll be providing security for deeper integration into Active Directory as well as IAM from AWS. And we're going to be supporting natively encryption at rest within these cloud providers. A lot of this is what we've heard and we've been learning with our customers over the course of the last year. As I said, we've had over 300% growth in the number of customers utilizing public cloud and our cloud service providers at the same time. And it's really been amazing to see how this has become a piece of it, because we don't see customers using just one cloud. Typically, our customers are using one of the public clouds and one of the cloud service providers, managed service providers. So we did continue to make enhancements for our cloud service provider partners as well by updating our cloud control, by adding new APIs and retrofitting and making better our billing system that enables them to provide you a month-to-month service based on our platform. We continue to be and lead the way with VMware's vCloud Director integration with support for single VM, some basic support around single VM, which was a 9.5 vCloud Director enhancement, and some recovery time objective and reflection enhancements that allow the customers. What we've done over the course of this is really move away from the older SDK over the past year and a half, and we moved into the API, and we really enables us to use some of the new services provided by vCloud Director and provide that out to our partners who can provide it to their customers. So we're really excited about this. We think this is going to help our partners deliver better services to their customers, those on the phone here, and a number of you that are on the phone here today. But really, we're putting a big investment in this as well. So again, I don't want to be remiss and minimize things, but we also had over 6,000, actually over 7,000 customers pre-existing. And for those customers, we continue to innovate as well. For some of the customers, we've been hearing this for the past year. They wanted to be able to do more integration with maintenance mode, VMware's maintenance mode, and what happens when a host goes down. So we have integrated into and come up with a strategy within our product that knows when something goes into maintenance mode or a host goes down to be able to evacuate that host. This way, we help continue your protection, making your entire system less operationally strenuous to operate, so that, hey, maybe I have a dark data center, I have 60 or so ESXi hosts in there. We may lose one every now and again, and sometimes even because of the flood of alerts, we don't know what happened. And we get to Zerto as we go down our checklist. This way, you don't have to worry about Zerto anymore. If that ESX server goes down, we'll handle it and be able to go and help manage that failover between ESXi hosts, so your virtual replication appliances, the VRAs, still receive data from the other side and keep you protected. Zerto Virtual Manager Clustering, this is another one. We have a number of customers who have divisions. A good example is we have a customer out of London. They run their Latin American enterprises out of Miami and a Miami data center. They have a couple ESXi hosts down in Latin America, be it in Colombia, Brazil, Chile, and some of the other Central American countries as well as Mexico. And they pull all of those, they replicate all of those back into Miami, where they have a vCenter. They have a single vCenter. If you know our architecture, really it's been important for us is that how do I deal with the fact that maybe I only have that one vCenter? So what we've done is had, because then you would only have one ZVM or Zerto Virtual Manager. By clustering and having an active passive cluster, leveraging Microsoft's SQL clustering, you'll be able to do this and have an active and a passive virtual manager. This way, if you have that and you have a single site like Miami bringing back Latin America with one vCenter, because it's not cost effective to have a vCenter out with 2 ESX servers, this way we help you again lower your cost of operations and become more resilient. And we're also adding something that really builds upon a feature that we put out about a year ago. About a year ago, we put out what we call single VM recovery. This allowed you to have a virtual protection group where you could recover a single VM out of it. And what we did is built on top of that. So now I want to fail over a virtual protection group. But what happens if one of those VMs is not in a happy state? Well, the whole virtual protection group kind of gets hung up. Well, now you'll have the option of saying, hey, for the rest of the VMs that are happy and that the rest of that application, I want to go forward. I'll deal with that other virtual machine and I'll, fix it as I go. And we'll be able to split that virtual protection group up. That VM or those VMs that are not happy, you can hold back and you still have that recovery. So again, a lot of features that we've heard about and really are building upon each other to give you even more resiliency. We believe that IT resilience is the combination of bringing together of, disaster recovery and replication with the backup and the cloud, and it has to be done in a resilient single place manner, and you have to have that single place be resilient as well. So as we kind of talked about up front, I wanted to give you kind of a little bit of a preview. We'll be doing some new enhancements. We've been working with focus groups over the course of the past year to get some feedback on some of the colors, some of the layout, how we actually deal with filtering to give some user enhancements and a better experience to our customers. And we'll be bringing this out for the Zerto Virtual Manager and tying that back into Zerto Analytics as well. So both of those will have a similar look and feel over the course of the next 6 months here. And as we go into advanced analytics, what you'll start seeing out there, in fact, you'll start seeing it as soon as now. If you go into Zerto Analytics by going into the My Zerto portal and selecting the tab that says Analytics, you'll see site-wide journal history, storage reporting. All of this you'll start to see. Dashboard enhancements are also coming to give you a better look and feel, as I mentioned, to bring and tie that back into what we're doing on site. So you'll have very little navigational differences between them. And then what we're also doing is bringing customer network history for our cloud service providers. And of course, all of this is accessible by APIs. So if you have a manager of managers on site and you want to bring some of this data down for a dashboard you've built in your network operations center, security operations center, you can actually use our API to collect some of this data and bring that down in there. And what's great is we have a number of customers that are putting examples, as well as other Zerto employees that are putting them out on blogs, and we're starting to build a good community around this as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Gijsbert, and he's going to take us through the architecture.
Yes, thank you very much, Rob. I hope my audio is okay.
That's great.
Wonderful. Let's dig into the architecture a little bit deeper. Now, when you look at Zerto, we all know Zerto and we love Zerto. Maybe some of you don't. The core of what we do is our continuous data protection. Now, if you click this slide, you will see what happens is that you actually see the data moving. So VMs are generating changes or generating new writes. And as we go along, those writes are being replicated into what we call a journal. And this journal gives you the ability to rewind back to seconds ago, up to 30 days. So this really gives you the capability to recover to something from 7 seconds ago, 10 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, even up to 30 days ago. Now, this journal is located on the target side, and all the replication is happening without any type of performance impact. So we now have a site that's only a few seconds behind from its production site, and we know exactly what's on that site. We know the VMs, we know how they belong together by using the virtual protection groups, and we know exactly what changed over time by using that journal. So what we now do is actually take that journal, add something we call a persistent bitmap to exactly read or only read the blocks that have changed in a certain amount of time, take those blocks and write them very efficiently to a target repository, being NFS, SMB, or one of those purpose-built backup appliances, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's local on disk. And this really gives you the ability to eliminate the concept of backup windows, because instead of taking a backup from your production system, you're taking a backup from a target system for CDP. So there's no production impact in any of those flows. On the next slide, I'll dig into the process a little bit more, because what we've actually done is, as you can see on this slide, use the VRA, which is our scale out architecture. These are our replication appliances. So a replication appliance is installed on each and every host you have in both production side and in your recovery side. And what we've done is we added an additional component to the virtual replication appliance called the DSS, the data stream service. Now, what this allows us to do is, look, any of the restore and backup operations are being performed by the VRA. As you have multiple VRAs, we automatically scale with your environment. So you don't need to add any additional architecture. You don't need to add any additional backup servers or media agents or whatever they're called. You're actually using the scaled architecture you already have there. So the DSS simply writes all the blocks from that persistent bitmap and writes it directly to the repository. So the connection between the repository and the VRA is the only connection you would need. So there's no public access to the repositories as well. What we simply do is write that point in time to the repository. Of course, we store some metadata with all those block changes, and that metadata will allow us to basically see every point in time as a full copy without actually having to double write the blocks or anything like that. So this is the protection workflow. On the next slide, we'll talk about the recovery workflow. So what actually happens is, it's quite easy. We have the metadata. We know exactly which data belongs to a point in time on that repository. We simply take that metadata, find all the blocks we need to recover, simply read those blocks from the repository, and use our VRA to write them to the restore disk. Now, as soon as something is restored, we use the ZVM or the ZVM and all its orchestration and automation that's already built in to simply attach the disk to a new VM. And that's how easy it is to recover a VM, all from those long-term retention repositories. Now, let's get into the most interesting piece of this session, the demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take control and make sure that I can share my screen. So this is the interface. Now, the funny thing is, this happens with code. This is still showing an older version of the UI. As you can see from one of the screenshots that Rob actually showed, we switched around some colors. So it's a continuous process. We keep doing vetting, we keep talking to our customers. We have some groups we talk to and to get feedback. One of the feedbacks was, hey, maybe we should change those colors. We've done that in one of the latest versions. This is still running a build with the older look and feel. So as you know, this is subject to change. So this is the new interface. So we moved all the navigation up to the left side, and this is where we can go to the things you're already used to, the VPGs. And the VPGs still show you exactly what you need to see from them. What is my actual RPO right now? Am I meeting my SLA? But what we're going to look into right now is more of the long-term retention features. And as Rob already explained, we have something that we call repositories. And the repositories are actually purpose-built backup appliances or secondary storage appliances that we use to store the long-term retention data on. So you can simply add those to the interface by simply adding them. I know Rob shared some screenshots as well. You simply give it a name, define the storage type, and as you can see, we have some names in here. We talk about HPE Store once, Exagrid, some other appliances as well. What this means is that when you select this one, we have tweaked the settings specifically for these purpose-built backup appliances. So we have like native integration with that. Right now, we support NFS and SMB protocols to talk to those specific appliances. You can also use the generic network shares for that as well. But this allows us to just select one of the purpose-built backup appliances, one of the storage appliances you already have in your data center, and use that to store those long-term retention copies on. So right now, I created two shares. I'm using SMB myself. I have a backup share of an index share. And what I've done is I've set up a long-term retention policy on one of my VPGs. So when I go into my VPGs, I right here have the file server. As you can see, all the familiar details you've seen in the other interface as well. It's just a much cleaner look and feel. When you browse through it, there's less clicks you need to do, and it just gives you a clear overview of all the data that you need to see. Now, this VM is currently backed up, and when we go into Edit VPG, there's a new section which is called Retention Policy. Now, first off, let's start with replication. Right now, my journal is set to 1 day for this specific VM or this specific virtual protection group. So that means I'm having 1 day of history in my journal. But if I want to go further back in time, I actually go to my retention policy. And this is where I can set up those copies. So what I'm currently doing is I'm giving it a daily, which I do a daily backup, which is based on incrementals. I do this 7 days, so I keep those data for 7 days, and I'm also doing a weekly, which is a full backup, and I'll keep that one for 2 weeks. Now I can make this as flexible as I want. I can create monthlies, do full backups of those as well. I can create yearlies and keep them forever long I want, whether it's 99 years, 225 years, doesn't matter as long as you have storage available. And this really allows you to take your data protection to the next step. You don't have to worry actually about when this backup runs because we're not impacting that production performance. Now, as you can see, and let's go into the retention status. This actually has changed over the version 6.5, where we've added the scale-out architecture we are using. It's now called retention status. You can see exactly which virtual protection group has the retention policy enabled, how many restore points are there available, was the last run successful, yes or no. I can also see this per VM. Now, right now, I only have a single VM. But let's say I actually want to recover something from this VM. As Rob talked about, we have a process called index and search as well. So what I've done is I actually enabled index and search. So let's simply go back to this VPG and look at its settings, because you'll see you have the ability to opt in specific servers for file system indexing. So what I've done, my Windows file server, I have selected the indexing feature. So what I can do now is go to actions, go to search and restore. What I can actually do is now search, first of all, select the VM. I can select like a time frame in which I want to search. Now I only have 2 points in time available, so I'm not going to bother with any other sections. But what I can do now is actually simply click test, search. What it will do right now is actually search through all of my indexes that are available and display the results of that. Now let's make sure we don't run into the demo effect. Now, as soon as those files are displayed, we can actually select the file, see the restore points that are available, go to the operation that you want to do. Want to restore the VM or restore the VPG. Now, we still have the classical file level recovery available, so we can simply go to restore file, browse to all the other files to get that really short-term retention and that really granular recovery. Now, Rob also talked a little bit about Zerto Analytics. So what I've done is I also pulled up Zerto Analytics, and I'll highlight some of the new features there as well. So first of all, the average RPO graph, this is currently available in Zerto Analytics right now. So if you open this is visible. You can see the average RPO over the last 24 hours, the last week, the last month. But one of the more interesting ones that I want to dig into is the storage report. So this actually gives you an overview of your data store usage and will show you exactly how much Zerto is using at this point in time. So how much data is used for the journal, how much is used for the recovery disks. As you can see, it gives you an exact overview including file names, which is really useful, but it'll also show you to which protected VM this belongs. Now, this is specifically very useful when you're doing things like failover tests, so you know exactly what the size of the journal is, how much changes you have done. As you can see, I can do this for any type of data store I have in my environment, different sites. This really gives you some insights in your storage usage, in your capacity management, while making sure that you're still protected. Now, back to the new interface. So still, we've changed some of the order around. The dashboard still shows you some of the main features you want to see are SLA-driven VPG management. Am I meeting my SLAs, yes or no? So it's still one peek and you know exactly what is happening. Monitoring, still in the same place, still shows you the active alerts, events, and all the running tasks. We have moved the actions button, which used to be somewhere in the middle below, to the top. So it's really easy to simply create a checkpoint, add a VPG, restore a file, or hit the search and restore feature. We've also added something new, which is the analytics feature in there. You can now directly link to Zerto Analytics and open it up in a new tab, so for easy access. Now, as soon as Zerto 7 gets released, the interface of Zerto Analytics will get a refresh as well, and make sure that it's the same look and feel. So the user experience across the entire platform is the same. Now, that's the demo for today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand it back to Rob, make sure that he can start presenting again. And I'd like to thank everyone for your attention. And please let the questions come in. So back to you, Rob.
Thanks, Gijsbert. Really appreciate it, and that was a great demo. I think, again, it gives you a good view on where we're going, and I think it shows you how we're really paying out, bringing together the convergence of disaster recovery and backup, and how we're bringing it into one simple, easy-to-use platform, combining continuous data replication and journal-based recovery to give you that elastic journal that goes across the short-term and long-term retention needs of our customers. Really focused on providing you all that's needed and enabling you to say goodbye to a number of things that have really been, what we've heard is kind of thorns in the side from a legacy backup perspective, like backup servers, media agents, and servers. Think about it this way, there's no agents. Again, you're leveraging the journal as Gijsbert had shown you in the architecture. It's already off-site, it's already protected, and you're making the copy. What we had heard from customers is, hey, you already have the copy at the secondary site. Help me do more with that, be it in test dev and DevOps types of scenarios, or in, hey, I want long-term retention with no media agents. It's already scalable, so no additional software, no setting up or trying to size out numbers of different pieces of hardware. Being that DSS is part of the virtual replication appliance you already have deployed. If you're a customer, you already have it deployed. You already have it there. You already have it scaled out. There is no setup. And one of the neatest things I thought, and we kind of learned this through some of our customers, was the backup window's gone, because I can more or less go back in time and make a long-term copy because of the fact that it's off-site. I have the checkpoint. I know what's there. I know what the full is, and I can make that incremental. So say I want to, somebody forgets to back up a database before they make a change, either I can go and create a long-term copy before and after, or I can go and say, hey, I can use the journal for short-term. There's many different ways, but the backup window truly goes to zero. There's no snapshotting. There's no having to quiesce. It's able to go and do that based on the core Zerto technology that's tried and true for the last basically 9 years now. And no production impact. Again, we provide this. This is kind of core, and it's really true to what we do. We always say that do no harm and no production impact. So why one platform for DR and backup? Again, native and agentless, continuous data protection, no performance impact, easy and non-disruptive, and it is already scale out. We look at ourselves, we're one of the most, if not the most scalable in the industry, and we've continued that by marrying that DSS service into that architecture. Also, it's journal-based, so it's stuff that it's reliable, it's been out there, it's tried and true and tested over almost a decade now, with granular site application, VM, or file recovery capabilities. Again, giving you from 7 seconds on the short term out to, say, 70 years on the long term, really granular of seconds, and being able to help you fight those new things like ransomware or file deletions with the short term, and going even more granular on the longer term with the incrementals and monthly fulls. And being able to be a full application stack protection, being able to be consistent and protect and recover an entire application. Like I said, and I kind of use that example of vHANA with some of the app servers and web servers out in front of the database. And then really, and I think one of the questions that had kind of come in while we were going through here is it's independent of any storage device, of any cluster, of any data store, of any host. We are agnostic to hardware. We are not a hardware provider. We're not going into hardware. We have no desire to build an appliance. We bring you best of breed software for bringing together one platform for DR and backup that you can then select in your cost structure where you land that data. And as Gijsbert showed you, we even help you optimize that by giving you the analytics to understand where it lands. So next steps for you is really to leverage 6.5 for your backup use cases. You can start to use that. We have made some enhancements, some significant enhancements as you go from 6.5 to 7.0 that you'll see. But really what you have there today is you can start to look at the incrementals that we have there. The file deletions, you can go and solve for that, or the ransomware use cases by using the journal file level recovery. It's like to say it's the best kept secret in our product, and we have a number of customers who've used it. You can even go up to our website and see that, where they've recovered from ransomware. In some cases, some companies have been hit multiple times as their highly desirable targets, be it from that or file deletion, and being able to get you to object level recovery as well. So again, going on, you have other use cases that you can satisfy with this. I think the disaster recovery ones and the backup ones we've hit upon pretty hard in this webinar. I think as you start to look at multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, as we said, we've seen over 300% growth in our customers leveraging at least one, if not multiple clouds outside of cloud service providers. So we see people using both those and hyperscale clouds together like Azure. And then we see our customers utilizing us as a platform for migration as well. And you really can't have all of these other four without having it simply to use highly integrated, all-in-one software platform orchestration. As we like to say, there's a number of other companies out there that compete or say they do what we do. And what we look at it is you may need to go buy 5 separate titles of their software to actually do what we do in one title and one set of orchestration. It all has to be native. And then obviously on top of that, giving you and making you more operationally efficient by delivering those analytics. That's truly the IT resilience platform that Zerto delivers. So on to 7.0. And if you haven't heard, we are going to be doing an early release of the code, kind of what we call a tech preview and feature preview of the code. If you're interested in getting involved, you can reach out to your account manager. There are a couple spots left. We do have, almost have it fully subscribed at this point in time, but we wanted to offer this up to the people, and we really appreciate all of those who came on today. And if you want to get involved, please do reach out to your account manager. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our biggest event of the year, which is coming up on May 20th in Nashville. And I have to say, it's with great pleasure that I announced that Peyton Manning will be one of our keynote speakers. As a lifelong Patriots fan, this guy has tortured me and my season tickets that I sit there and watched him for a number of years. But, you want to talk about one of the most resilient guys and who's seen it all and seen the industry change, being the NFL. This guy has a load of information that he can tie together that really is relevant to how we are seeing our industries change and that digital economy change, and how does really IT, as we have that, the introducing of digital content to everything and how everything has become online 24/7. Really some great insights into that. Also, obviously, we want to thank you even further beyond the 7.0 preview, but really, if you want, you can go up there. You can see that there's discounts further, a 20% in addition to the discounts that are already on the website, and just use Zerto 7, all one word, as your discount. And with that, we're going to jump into, and I'm going to kind of talk to some of the questions. I kind of answered one of them, which is, yes, you can go and use anybody's storage behind us that supports, obviously, if you can run VMware on it, our journal will run on it for the short term. For the long term, if it uses NFS or SMB, we can help with that as well. There were some questions. There was one question around Catalyst stores. For the first introduction, we are doing NFS and SMB to store once. Later in this year, we are doing integration, purpose-built integration with Catalyst. So stay tuned for that around the 7.5 release. NAT is supported for those who are looking at that. And you can see that you can recover SQL databases from a point in time without an agent. And again, what's nice is the transaction logs are actually carried with the SQL or Exchange. The databases, most of your current relational databases such as Oracle SQL or even the database underneath of Exchange these days will run those transaction logs. Because we have it from a point in time, at seconds of granularity, when you go back to that point in time, it'll run those transaction logs forward for you. Let me look at some of the other ones that came in here. Can you upgrade to version 7 from 6.0. Actually, you will have to make a little bit of a pit stop in 6.5, but you'll quickly move to 7, and it's all automated to allow you to go and do that in one felt swoop. You don't have to go and run 6.5 for a long period of time. In fact, it brings the bits down, it upgrades to 6.5, and then it allows you to go straight through to 7 after that. The current license, if you are an Enterprise Cloud Edition customer, so if you have our Zerto Enterprise Cloud Edition, you will have these backup options and features included. If you are on our standard version, there is an upgrade path for you to Enterprise Cloud Edition to get all of these neat new features that we said around the long-term retention. Currently, we're not doing physical servers. We actually have looked out into the future of this and are kind of considering where things are going around containers and physical-based applications as they move to the cloud, as people utilize containers on physicals. And I would say stay tuned there. Later in the year, we may be talking a little bit more about that. So host maintenance mode, apply to the target side, and move protection to another host VRA. It will. That's actually what it will do. So on your target side, so the recovery side versus the protected side, it will shift you over. We already support, Upgrade Manager or VMware's Upgrade Manager on the protected site, or the site that's transmitting the data. And the stuff that we're announcing by allowing evacuate host is for the protected or the recovery site where you're sending all of the data to. And with that, I think we're going to end it there. We did get a whole bunch of other questions, and what we'll do is we'll follow up with FAQs and really appreciate the time that everybody has spent here. And I want to thank you for joining us. Thanks again, and have a great day.